never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen, I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You're not defenseless. I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. I hear the whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Women's Safety panel. We are joined here with our own little army of women to discuss what we can do and what's going on just now in the UK and across the world in regards to women's safety. So I'm Heather, I'll be your host today, but hopefully I won't have to talk too much and everyone else here will do that for me.
Glasgow Care Foundation is a small Glasgow charity doing big things.
My YouTube kept going in the background there. So 2 months ago, I had a discussion with Ashley from Thriving Survivors, who's here today, about what our topic for social media was going to be for the month ahead, and women's safety was the obvious choice that came up just with everything that's going out. So skip on 2 months and here we are with our panel of women. So I'm a female, I'm a mum, a sister, an aunt, I have a sassy 10-year-old girl, and I don't have the answers. And honestly, I'm angry. I'm fed up with having the same conversation and at a bit of a loss as to where we go, what I tell my daughter as she gets closer and closer to high school. Last night I was watching a programme, of anyone saw it, on BBC about rape culture in school, and to hear that there are young boys in primary school looking at porn absolutely terrified me. It was not something that I was aware of. Today is the first day of the Global 16 Days campaign. So this is a global campaign that raises awareness for violence against women across the world. And it is their 30th birthday, the 30th year they've been doing it. And this year's theme is femicide. So again, it fits well into what we've been seeing and experiencing in the UK this year alone, never mind the last 30 years and as far back as time goes. So it's a very fitting way for us to start the campaign. I know that Thriving Survivors, Laura at Glasgow Girls Club, this is going to be something that's all over their social for the next 10 days, and we've got a lot of stuff planned. For anyone that's watching, we are going to be discussing some sensitive subjects. We have put a trigger warning in. Please watch at your own discretion, turn off if you need to. And if you do need to discuss anything further, please do contact us if it does bring up anything that you need to discuss or upsets you or you need help with. Thriving Survivors are here to help as well. Don't be left alone after listening to some of the discussions that might happen today. On that note, if you have anything you want to add to the discussion, any questions you want to put to the panel, any comments, please do put it in the chat. So we're live on Glasgow Girls Club page. Thank you, Laura, for giving us the platform. But it is being shared across onto Thriving Survivors, Scottish Women in Business, One for Growth, and anyone else here, feel free to share it onto your pages. So that's enough from me. We've got an amazing panel here that have got plenty to say on the subject, and hopefully I'll get to sit back and let you all speak. So I want to start with just going around the table, so to speak, and asking everyone just to introduce themselves, who they are, who they're representing, and ideally give us an idea of why you're here. So what is it you want to discuss and what's brought you to the table? So I'm just going to go around the table the way I see it here. So Ashley, I'm going to start with you.
Thanks, Heather. So I'm Ashley Scotland. I'm the founder and chief executive of Thriving Survivors, as a charity that supports survivors of trauma. So we deliver a 4-stage recovery programme, and that's the work that we do. What brings me to the table is this is an issue for everybody, that we all need to act now. And I think it was Laura who might have nailed it. And if we act now, then we could prevent some of this for the next generation. And I think that's really prevalent for me. I've got a 2-year-old daughter, but I've also got a 14 and an 8-year-old son. So yeah, it's what we teach them now that will make that big difference. So I felt this is a really important topic and it needed discussed. So
thanks, Ashley. Laura?
Hi, my name's Laura McGuinness. I'm the founder of the Glasgow Girls Club and the GGC Business Club, and it's all about championing women to grow and glow both personally and professionally. I'm here today because I run a massive platform of women, and I think women's safety, the discussion is so important. And as Ashley says, we could be part of the change. We can all make a change. I'm knackered by what women have been through, what I've normalised in my own life. And as Ashley said as well, I've got a 2-year-old girl, and I'm terrified about what the future holds if we don't stand strong now.
Thanks, Laura. Georgia?
Hi, I'm Georgia. I'm a university student at Glasgow Caledonian, and I'm just very grateful to be here, surrounded by other strong women, ready to discuss these topics that are so prevalent in all of our lives. I'm Generation Z, so I'm a bit in the digital media world, and I see a lot of issues come to the surface, women being attacked online, and I want to know what I can do going into my career after university to, be in its start to the end of this kind of system that we have, and what we can do to as a whole as women and stop it altogether.
Thanks, Georgia. Elena?
Everyone, my name is Eleanor Soper. I'm the National Programmes Manager for YWCA Scotland, and I'm here in that capacity today, but I'm also a survivor. And I am here really to talk today about a piece of work that was done by our Young Women Lead programme this year looking at feminist town planning in Glasgow, with an emphasis of women's experiences in parks and on buses. And I think the things that they found through that research will come of no surprise to anyone here, especially with the Glasgow focus about how the reality of living in Glasgow as a woman is. So looking forward to sharing those findings with you all.
Thanks, Eleanor. Tracy?
Hi there, I'm Tracy, thanks Heather. I'm the current president at Scottish Women in Business. We represent a large group of women, so I guess I'm here partly because I'm a woman. We've got a large group of people, and I think anything we can do to raise awareness on this topic is, it's definitely valuable. I also think it's the first thing that we've been able to do to support Thriving Survivors, who are our new charity of the year. So hopefully we'll be able to do a lot more throughout the year to raise awareness and help out.
Thanks, Tracy. Emma?
Hi everyone, my name is Emma Miller. I am the editor-in-chief and publisher of Hood magazine, which is Scotland's only free women's glossy that's distributed nationwide. I'm here because, well, we've just had enough really, haven't we, to be perfectly honest, girls? I mean, it's utterly ridiculous to think that, my 16 and 17-year-old girls can't walk home from school in the dark. Someone has to go to the bus stop to collect them because you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think we've just come to a point in female history where we're all ready and we're feeling strong enough to actually make a stand. So that's why I'm here.
Thanks, Emma. Hayley?
Hi, I'm Hayley Miller and I run Richland Minibuses. We work with a wide range of different charities, NSPCC, COVID Befrienders, Young Carers Service. So hopefully I can help people just realise the safety concerns regards to getting home at night, transport, booking, things like that. And just obviously, excuse me, some information just really from what we see at schools and things like that, what goes on, transport, discussion with kids and things. I have no kids, but obviously I've got young nieces and nephews and great nephews. So for me, it's really important going forward that people feel safe and we can go out and enjoy life, really.
Thank you. Lauren?
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm a student at Glasgow Cali, and I'm here just because I'm a woman, and it's important to talk about this, and it's important to not just sweep the issues under the rug. It's just not acceptable, so it's important to advocate for women's safety, definitely.
Thanks, Lauren. And Alice?
Hello everyone, and thank you to you all and to Heather for having me. My name is Alice Jackson. I'm one of the co-founders of StratSafe, and I'm here today primarily to talk about the work that we do and the service that we offer and how we hope to be not just a part of sort of a temporary solution, but really part of a change going forward as we look to fundamental societal reform, as many of the issues that you've all raised in terms of educating young men, making our streets safer, and political and legislative reform, which are all tenets of potential solutions going forward. So I'm very excited to discuss those with you.
Thanks, Alice. So it's lovely to hear around the board that we not only have a mix of organisations, students, companies, but also within our own networks, we've got boys and girls from a young age up to adult. So there's a lot of subjects we're going to cover today, but I'd quite like to start with you, Alice, if that's okay. Can you tell us more about StratSafe and what it is, first of all, and how you came about to start it?
Yeah, of course. So StratSafe was founded back in March of 2021 after the death of Sarah Everard. My co-founder, Rachel, and I attended a vigil and here in Edinburgh, which is where we're based, it's where I live. And we were at this vigil and many people were, eulogising and speaking about femicide and And again, there was an atmosphere of not only grief and mourning and loss, but there was a real tangible frustration and anger that we had lost, you know, another sister just because we couldn't do something as simple, and she couldn't do something as simple as walk home without risk of violence. And Rachel got up and spoke. Rachel is fantastic, by the way, and said, I know, I'm just, every time I do things like this, I can't shut up about how much I love Rachel. And Rachel got up and spoke and said, look, if anyone ever, because Rachel's tough as hell, and if anyone ever needs a walk home, here are my details, and you can I will get you a cab, I will come and find you, I will come and get you. Me and my husband will come and find you, we will come out and we will, you know, get you home safely. And then we were reflecting that night, and I said, right, well, we can't put your personal number out there. So we went and bought a little burner phone, and we put out the information and said, we are StratSafe and this is what we're here for. And then we put it out on sort of local groups. We never really expected to operate really with any longevity or anywhere apart from locally. And then the response was just unbelievable in terms of people saying, this is something that I would rely on, this is a service that I need. So we formed ourselves really pretty quickly, and by April 18th we were operating, and we've operated every weekend since. So the promise is that you can call the StratSafe number, which is 0333 335 0026, and someone will stay on the phone with you while you're walking home. And you can call from anywhere in the UK, and we can offer support, resources, advice, just a chat or a gossip. And since then, we've taken hundreds and hundreds of calls across the UK. And yeah, that's where we are. And we would love to, we'd love to grow and expand, operate the phone, you know, every night of the week, and have walking branches as well across the UK, where we have that in Edinburgh at the moment, where 2 volunteers will come out and meet you and walk you from A to B. And everyone is, you know, interviewed, you have to apply, everyone is trained, background checked. And we have a lot in place to ensure the safety of our volunteers and also of our users. But the response has been wonderful, and the support we've had has been amazing. And yeah, that's who I am and what we do.
It's such a great initiative, and I think that, yeah, it's something that would be great to see across all cities. So obviously at the moment, if you're in Edinburgh, you can get a walk home, and across the UK you can phone and speak to your volunteers. Lauren or Georgia, obviously you are you're the youngest here, and you are the prime age to be out there at nights, out there at the weekends. And are you finding it, how do you feel? Are you scared? Are you worried? Is this a service that you think you'll use?
Some of my friends have actually used that service before, and they've said it's really good. So yeah, but Georgia and I go out quite a lot in Glasgow together, and we always either share an Uber or we track each other's Ubers, because we always make sure, like, as soon as we're home, we message each other and stuff like that, because it is worrying if you've not heard, if your friend leaves and you don't hear from them, like your brain just starts to wonder. So yeah, we're quite good at that, I think.
And like, especially with Uber and trying to get home, Uber's only recently, you know, introduced this kind of software that allows you to send your location to like a certain amount of numbers, but beforehand there was really no safety in place. And I think especially as young women, it's quite it can be quite intimidating being in a taxi on your own, let alone even being with friends, and especially within Glasgow, it is a very like pedestrianised city, so walking home can be quite scary. I know, like, I live in the south side of the city. I walk my dog even at night time, and that can be quite overwhelming. And because it's dark so early now, it's definitely a service that, you know, is going to be so helpful and beneficial to so many women, because it is such a, you know, my mum worries every time I go out and it's dark, and that shouldn't be the case. So no, it's definitely, thank you, Alice, for, you know, taking the initiative to do something so important like that.
Alice, what's your plans for the future with StrutSafe? Is it going to grow? Is it always just going to be this service to help people? Or you mentioned legislation. Or you've got bigger plans to take it further?
Yeah, I want to go down to the House of Commons and I want to do this. No, I think definitely. I think this has been. I mean, this has always been. I don't think it's any surprise to anybody who knows me that this was the path I ended up taking. This is always something I've been passionate about, and in my mind, as I really want the service to be across the UK and even further than that, because no one is obliged to rely on us, right? And a criticism we get is, well, this is just a sticking plaster solution. This isn't anything that fundamentally reforms things. And I understand that criticism because, of course, if we think about violence against women and violence against marginalized groups, it goes way further than this. It's so ingrained in our culture. It's so prevalent, the misogyny, and it really, it's unfathomable. You can't really, the way I'm trying to put it into words now, you wrapping your head around it and you see the way it affects and all the different little intersections of how, it affects, women of color and queer women, these issues are so prevalent. But moving forward, we want to be very much a part of reform. I know that we met with Angus Robertson from the Scottish Government a couple of weeks ago and are looking for a commitment from him. We also, I know we're looking to contribute to the Everard inquiry, which is coming up, and really take any opportunities we can, because we have this platform now, which we sort of have stumbled upon because people, know the service we're offering. And we want to use it and use this momentum that we have to try and make things better in more ways than one, not just with the service, but fundamentally down the line. And I was speaking to someone earlier today who has worked trying to solve the issue, not trying to solve the issue, but trying to improve the lives of women affected by violence and sexual violence. And she has done this work for 30 years. And we were talking and she went, "How old are you?" And I went, "I'm 22. And she went, "Right. Okay, well, I've been doing this for 30 years and still a long way to go. And I'm not sure how far we've come in 30 years. So you ready for this to be your life?" And I was like, yeah. So as long as I can be part of this, as long as the people I work with will have me, as long as I can make constructive progress with all the people I work with, then just chug along.
Amazing. Thanks, Alice. So this kind of brings us quite well onto the next subject about the volume of apps and phone lines and everything that are out there and being introduced to help women stay safe. Now, to make it quite clear, I'm all for the apps. They're brilliant. Like StrutSafe, like you said, some people do look at all these things and go, is it just a plaster over the wound? It's not actually fixing things. But I think we have to face reality, and the issues are here just now. The violence is here just now. And if there's things out there that can help us feel safer, that can reduce risk, then it would seem naive not to use them. However, is there a discussion point around that potentially they're just businesses that are making money and they're not actually contributing to help fix any issues? Obviously, Alice, StrutSafe doesn't fall into that. What you're doing is an amazing thing and you're taking this further. But the likes of, there's been a lot of criticism around BT's potential 888 call number. Is it just a money maker for BT? Is it actually going to fix anything? Is it just another phone line? And there is, I recently, and it was in the video at the start, was reading an article, and I found one article and went down a rabbit hole and finding about 20 articles, all listing the top safety apps that women should have. And we won't go into the comments from some politicians, etc., about what women should be doing to keep themselves safe rather than guys either. So I want to have an open discussion, and anyone can come in here. What are your thoughts on all the apps and the phone lines? Are they helpful? Are they putting a plaster over the wound. What are your thoughts on them? I'm going to go to Emma first to start off.
Okay, right. So I don't have any of these apps, but we have Snapchat on our phones. And if the girls go out, my daughters are 16 and 17, if they go out, I ask them to have their Snap Maps on. Now, I'm 46, right? I've had more, instances with grabby men in my life than I would care to remember. And I'll be really honest, guys, none of these have ever happened at night. This has never happened at night to me. It's always been during the day. But it is something, it's a little bit reassuring, I think, for people to have something on their phone whereby, someone else knows where you are. But at the end of the day, is that actually going to help? I really think that, I was really concerned when Georgia said that you feel intimidated being in a taxi. Now, that in itself is a huge concern to me, because I think that's where we need to be strong, ladies. We need to be strong against this, because if we're scared all the time, if we're worried all the time, if we're intimidated all the time, we're just sitting targets, right? We need to somehow, and I don't know the answers, this is where I think the biggest issue lies, is that there are no answers, because we can talk about this being societal. This comes back, this is millennial, this is since humans began that men have done this to women. And I think we're just so angry now is because we've changed so much over the last, however many years, to now feel stronger, to have our voice, to be independent from men, that we're now in a situation whereby we feel like we should be doing something and we can do something. I think the apps I worry sometimes that they maybe take the emphasis off your own personal sense of awareness, because that's something that, is innate, and you need to channel that. You need to be aware of what's around you. Things like, and this is going to be really unpopular, and I'm sorry, but the Be Kind campaigns, I think, are doing women a massive disservice, because we're almost having to, retrain ourselves on our natural instincts, right? So if someone's coming up to you as a female now, you're very, hi there, how's it, and you feel like you've got to be nice. You don't know who they are, but you've got to be nice. You've got to be kind to these people, even if they're giving you the heebie-jeebies. That to me worries me, because I think we have natural instincts. We need to use them. We need to be strong. We can't be worried getting in a taxi. And the fact that we are, that's super concerning, because you should feel safe getting in a cab with your chums. Apps, Alice, well done, because I think any woman doing anything at all, absolute hats off to you. You're clearly committed to what you're doing. And I think these kinds of things are important, but the only thing is that I don't want women to lose their innate ability to look after themselves, feeling that someone else or something else is going to be able to do it for them. I think we still need to be engaged and aware of our surroundings.
Right, just jump in on that. Thanks, Emma. Yeah, and I think I just wanted, this whole discussion is really difficult, because obviously there is a mix of genuinely wonderful things that are happening that have come out of the community, like StrutSafe, like what Alice and Rachel, I assume, are doing, which are great and are targeting the areas that we need to help ourselves feel safe. But as you sort of mentioned, Heather, this is a plaster over a wound, because all that is happening here is that we are having to take responsibility for our own safety, because the structures are not in place to keep us safe. Mm-hmm. And it should not be the situation that, I understand what you're saying, Emma, about we shouldn't be feeling unsafe in a taxi, but the reality is that we do. And the reality is that women are being attacked on public transport. Women are being attacked in taxis. Yeah. I was meant to be here with someone on my program, and the reason that she is not here is because she spent last night in A&E because her friend got spiked in Glasgow. Yeah. And that's why she's not here today. So this is something that is happening all the time. And so I understand that, perhaps we should be strong in ourselves, but it's really hard.
It is hard. It is hard. But I think that's something it's almost like, yes, we need to change their behavior. Yes, we need to help them to grow to be, men who do not want to do this. But there's something ingrained in them, and we need to work out how to solve that. But in the meantime, we need to feel strong as a you know, together and individually in order to, I mean, I'll give you a little story. I don't want to take over, right? But I used to live in London. I lived in London for 10 years, right? It was literally a hotbed for, you know, all sorts of sexual assault. I mean, it went on a weekly basis. And I remember it was 3 o'clock in the day and I was in Balham Tube Station, just sitting on the bench, waiting for the tube to come. And these 3 guys appeared. There was not another single soul down there at this time of the day. These 3 guys came down and they came right up to me, you know, as close like this, and a whole lot of profanities and words were used to me. And you know what? I just was so angry that I just shouted back at them. You know, I don't know where it came from. It was this weird sort of self-preservation mode. And they were so startled by the fact I'd actually spoken back. The tube came, they went down, they got on another carriage, I got on a carriage, and one of them, he just stood looking at me the whole journey through the carriage doors. And I thought, and I think now, and that's 20 odd years ago, what would have happened if that hadn't have come out of me at that precise moment in time? I was on my own. There was no BTP around to come in and lend a hand. But something, we need to be strong. I think that's the thing. I know that it's not an easy thing, and it's this drink spiking thing, that should, the arm of the law should come down on that so hard. But I think we need to use the power that we've got now as a community of women and help our girls to hopefully not feel so scared. I don't know how we do that, guys. I really don't. But I do think that a sort of strength from within and feeling supported by your girlfriends, maybe it is using the apps, having that's what's needed in the short term while we resolve the bigger problem.
Yeah, but just so on that, and I know we'll probably move on to the next thing, is that, and I'm so pleased that you were able to have that reaction and that you were able to find that from within you. But actually freezing is a perfectly normal response to when you're being faced with abuse. Yeah. And so we can't expect that every girl is going to be able to fight back or shout back. Mm-hmm. And so there has to be bigger things. And I really wish that we would all had it in it. I wish I had it in me when I was assaulted. I wish I'd been able to shout at them, but I didn't, and I froze. And that's, you know, maybe I'm going to live with that and wish that I had been able to fight back. But, you know, the reality is no one knows how we're going to respond when someone gets in our faces like that. Mm-hmm. So I think, yes, we do need to be strong, but we also need to have the support systems in place, and not just the support systems from our community, but also support systems that we know that if we were to report things, that they would be taken seriously by the powers that be, that have the power to make change in this. And that's companies that run services, that's the justice system, that's our politicians, that's policy. You know, we need to have those places, those things fixed. And I know it's not short-term fixed, but we have to make society feel safer. And the apps, as great as they are, especially when they come from the communities and not private companies just trying to make money off women suffering, we need that to feel safe, and we need to deal with the big picture.
I think we have to completely,
No, you go.
It's only a very quick one. I think something that we have to completely deprogram within ourselves is any kind of responsibility. And I know that we're encouraged to, especially by society, and we're actually encouraged to by a number of the companies that pitch us these apps and these numbers and these services. Because there's so much blame that can fall on you when these things happen. Yeah. And there is so much, well, what if, and what if I had, and what if someone had, and what if I'd done this or done that, or, you know. But at the end of the day, no woman is responsible for anything that happens against her. And no woman really, I don't think it even matters the response you have, because when these things happen, it's so difficult to remove yourself from that situation, or they're so intent on doing what they're going to do that there is perhaps no way that you can remove yourself. But it can seem like, well, while we fix things long term, while we look at the big picture, we should take responsibility now. And I just don't ever think that's a helpful or productive way, especially for survivors, because yeah, it is never your fault, and it's never, nothing committed against you is ever your fault, and it is never your responsibility to stop anything that's committed against you. And if you can, again, that shows, you know, so much strength, but there's so much strength in just existing anyway and walking in the world that we walk in. So I think that's just my 2 penneth, and I'll hand back to Heather.
Thanks, Alice. Ashley, do you want to come on in this one?
I think everybody makes really valid points. What Elena said is right. The brain's got a fight, flight, or freeze response. And how, when you're in that situation, you've got no idea how you're going to respond to that. I certainly know how I think I would respond now, as opposed to years ago where I never responded and my freeze response came into play. And now I would like to think I would fight and fight and fight and fight, and well, I would just keep fighting. But I shouldn't need to. That's the point. I shouldn't need to think, okay, if I get in the back of this taxi here, I'll always get a hackney. Always get a hackney, because they're safer than getting in the back of an Uber or getting in the back of a Glasgow cab, or well, they're just safer. So I therefore go for a hack. But I shouldn't have to sit and consider, how am I going to get home safely tonight? Actually, I'll just phone my husband. My husband will come and pick me up. I don't do public transport, and I'm sure we'll come to this, and that's just my own perception on that. I just don't do public transport. For me, it's too difficult, it's too triggering for me to go into that sort of space. When we talk about apps, I think, why should I need to have an app to keep me safe? Why should I have to download an app onto my phone that tracks me and tracks my movements? Why should we as women have to do all these things? There needs to be a whole new focus on the conversation and putting the blame back very, very firmly where it belongs, as well as the responsibility and accountability for behaving like that. And that belongs to men. And men need to be part of this conversation. That's proven a wee bit more tricky than what getting this panel together was an absolute doddle. But men need to be part of this conversation. We need to change the cultural attitudes that are entrenched within our communities. Do you know, it's like, I see it on a regular basis. I still live right in the thicket. I love my home, but the culture that we live within and the streets round about us, the generational norms that get passed from grandfather to father to son, that becomes a circle. That needs to be broken. And that comes right back to the education that we give our girls and our boys as children. But this conversation needs to involve men, and what more can men do?
Yeah.
Definitely. And I definitely want to, in the second half of this panel, discuss what's next and what we think we should do. But there's a few topics I still want to go over just to highlight some of the issues and how people are feeling before we move on to that. So Laura, I'm going to come to you next. First of all, actually, I'd quite like just a show of hands. Does anybody here have any of the apps, the safety apps on their phone? Have you got any, Laura?
I downloaded the Holly Guard when that first came out and the police were promoting that, but I've never used it. Not that we've not really been out that much, but for me as well, I think the Holly Guard app was basically, if somebody is coming close to you, if a man's coming close to you and you're feeling like scared, you can switch the app on and it basically records from your phone, so it'll get like a visual of the person and then that transmits to the police. But I always think if you're in a situation like that and you're busy fumbling about with an app, when like Emma said, it's like, you should be running rather than possibly going onto an app that, yes, maybe is well-intentioned, but like Ashley said, fundamentally, and Elena said as well, fundamentally the problem starts with the deeply ingrained misogyny, sexism, racism, everything that's going on in this society. So it's about actually changing the narrative of society rather than being like, hold your keys like this, download this app, learn self-defense. Like, these are all layers that we all know. We all know that, we should know it because, if we're in a situation with a man, like probably 9 times out of 10, yes, they'll get the better of us because they might be bigger. My mum always said something to me which has always stuck with me, and she always said, men are scared that women will laugh at them, women are scared that men will kill them. And there's like this big gap in between those two things that needs to be closed.
Quite a void that. There's quite a void in there between.
Quite a void.
Yeah. Do you not think as well, if there was, you know, any other sector of society, if one member of that society was being murdered or murdered every 3 days, that would be classed as a state of national emergency, right? Any other sector of society, if that was happening, that we are so blasé in this country now. There, you know, there's another little girl being murdered yesterday, you know, she's taken from a bus stop by who knows who, you know, it's literally, it just feels that it's, you know, it's almost become the norm. And that's, I think, where we just all need to have a real wake-up call and say, absolutely not. This is one woman every 3 days. I mean, how is that in any way, shape or form not the top topic in every newspaper every day, in the House of Commons every day, when that is going on out there? That to me is absolutely beyond shocking. It's beyond shocking.
It's a pandemic.
You know, I looked on the paper, I looked online today, I think her name was Bobby Lee, but I went to find her name and, you know, I couldn't even find it. I couldn't even, where's she gone? She was on the news last night and now they've got a body. And so now, you know, she doesn't even warrant being on the front page. I mean, come on. That's, to me, we need to go right back to the beginning and figure out where on earth this is all going so terribly wrong and consistently wrong, because, you know, it's going wrong, really wrong.
It is. So I'm going to move on to the next topic. Just one thing from me on apps. I remember, I'm going to go roughly 15 years ago, I was in Glasgow. I was probably about ages of you, Georgia and Lauren, and I was just walking from my work to my brother's, and it was daytime and I was getting followed. I was aware I was getting followed. I didn't have a mobile at that point. And I had to make the decision, do I keep going to my brother's? I was at Sucky Hall Street. I was at the top of Sucky Hall Street and my brother was down at Charing Cross. Or do I just run? Or do I stop at a phone box when they were still a thing and phone my brother and just say, because he had gates to get into his, can you meet me at the gate? And I remember having to make a decision, right, I'm going to stop, phone my brother, tell him what's happening, and then bomb it down the street. And that's exactly what I did. And I remember thinking, right, standing in that bus stop going, or the phone box going, right, my brother's waiting, but I'm going to have to go now because this guy's had time to catch up. And I remember bombing it down the street. And my brother was waiting for me. Nothing happened, but that was the middle of the day. So I don't have any of the apps, but now with a 10-year-old daughter, I want her to have all the apps, not because it's going to fix it, because maybe she'll have something that will work better than having to stand in a phone box thinking, am I going to make it to the bottom of Sucky Hall Street? So for me, the apps, to an extent, yeah, they're a plaster, but they're there just now when they are going to help some people. And if we can help anyone until the issue is resolved, then I think they're better than nothing. They're better than what I had 15 years ago. So moving on to our next subject, I want to talk about who do we trust, okay? Politicians, police, let's be honest, in this country, they don't have a good reputation right now. And this is not all politicians and not all police. I have police that are in the family, and I just want to make it clear if they're listening, this doesn't go to everyone, but we might as well face that we were brought up, or certainly I was brought up, you trust the police. The police are there to help you. The police are there to keep you safe if something goes wrong. You know, it's like little kids grow up, what they want to be, a policeman, a fireman. You know, it's just that ingrained. Not anymore. Not anymore. It's like I don't know, like, what are your kids going to ask to dress up as? What are they going to want to be when they're 5 years old? Are they going to want to be policemen anymore? Probably not. I'd be terrified now if somebody a kid turned around to me and said, oh, that's what I want to be. So I want to have that discussion, you know, obviously, with the deaths this year, and with, you know, let's be honest, just like you said there's, there was, you know, there's people dying one every 3 days, and that's not headline news. That's not what the politicians are talking about. So let's have this discussion, okay? So Tracy, I want to come to you. Do you trust the police? Do you trust the politicians? Are they doing enough? What's your thoughts on this?
I think it's hard to say you don't trust anybody. I think just generally nobody has either the answers or can get agreement from everybody and the resources to actually do what needs to be done. And I don't know what it is that needs to be done. There's something I was reading just recently. It came in after one of the deaths this year, where, and I don't know if it's been implemented, but some of the English police forces were implementing a new initiative where if a plainclothes policeman stops a woman in the street, then they'll do a video call, I don't know, I guess back to the station, to a uniformed police person to prove that they are actually a policeman. And I thought, if that happened to me, I would be more worried at somebody trying to justify that they were a police person. So I don't know if that initiative happened. I think some of the police forces might have actually implemented it. But I just thought that's not an answer to making people feel safer. That sounded like a crazy solution to me. So yeah, nobody has good answers for what to do.
Yeah. Hayley? Oh, sorry, Ellen, on you go.
Sorry, yeah, I was just going to come in and I've posted a link on the live stream, but there's a fascinating report that was released by Rape Crisis Scotland this year, which was created by their survivor reference group, and it was about police responses in Scotland, and about the ways in which Police Scotland could improve the way that they deal with people who are reporting sexual violence crimes and rape. And I think you should have a read of that. But I think it's really difficult as well. I think what you're saying there about, you know, previously people had an intrinsic trust of the police, I do not think that exists at all anymore. And, you know, we're talking about this as, you know, a group of majority white women, but actually if you're from any other marginalised community, the trust there is even lower. And so when you're looking at this, you have to take that intersectional approach of it. They're not just dealing with women as survivors of sexual violence or assault, but also people who might have multiple kind of disadvantages, I say that because it's the term that's used, who might have additional needs in terms of how they deal with the police. So I would thoroughly recommend that everyone reads that report that Rape Crisis Scotland did.
Thanks, Eleanor. That's really interesting. I'll definitely read that afterwards. Lauren, I'm going to come to you on this one, and Georgia too. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on this? As were you still brought up trusting police and politicians, or I think particularly in this subject, we'll deal with police because that's the one that's big in question in the press at the moment, or has been, and the internal conviction rates within police are horrendous. So as the younger Gen Z here, what's your thoughts?
Well, when I was 15, I had a issue where I had to contact the police, and they dealt with it very well. I was like stalked for a few months as a minor, and they dealt with it well to the extent where they visited me and my mum at my house, and they spoke to us. But then we were told they went to speak to the boy that was doing it at the time, and it was kind of brushed under the rug. So although I appreciated them kind of taking it seriously, because at that time nobody in school was taking it seriously, none of my peers were taking it seriously, it was just really the only person that kind of took it seriously was my mum, and was those two police officers. However, now that I've moved to a bigger city, and I've seen such violence happen within these cities, especially London, and seeing that the Scottish Police Force are now enforcing more tasers as well. That was on the news yesterday. They're doing training. It's really concerning. I don't particularly trust the police. I don't trust them with my personal information. I wouldn't trust them with my life because they've not proven that they're worth my trust. They've not done. There's so many crimes that go, like the conviction rates are horrific, and I understand that when pursuing such cases, it can be traumatic for the victims, and I understand that completely, depending on the victim whether they want to pursue that. However, it's just it's systemic, and they've not proven otherwise that they're worthy of my trust or my support. So no, I'm not a firm believer in the police at the moment. They've not got my back, I'm afraid. Sorry to all the police women and men watching.
Thanks, Jordan. Okay, I'm going to move on to, I'm aware of time, and let's be honest, we could sit here all day talking, but I'm going to try and move through some of the subjects so we can at least touch on as many as possible. I want to move on to transport, and transport in a wider sense of walking home, public transport, taxis, and when we're talking about walking home, also things like, what is your route? Is it lit up? Is it a safe route? So it is a wide topic. Hayley, I want to start with you in this one. So I'll just tell you a quick story about what happened to me about a week ago, maybe not a couple of weeks ago now. I was out with my boyfriend and we were out for a nice night, and we missed the last train home. So we were going to get a bus home, or we were going to get a taxi home, but there were no taxis. There was massive queues. So we went to get a bus. So taxi was gone. That route wasn't an option. When we got to the bus stop, there were loads of people in the same situation. There was like, they weren't waiting 2 hours to try and get a taxi. So we all got on the bus. We went 2 stops, and the guy's like, you all need to get off. The bus is broken. It's been bashed. Right, so my thoughts on whether he just wanted an early night or not are irrelevant, but we all got told to get off the bus. So on the bus, there was me, my boyfriend, another couple of couples, and there were 2 women completely on their own, and we were just chucked out at 12:30 into the street. And he's like, you have to wait for the next bus. And we were all looking on the apps, and there were no more buses coming. And he just drove off and left us all there. Now, if I was on my own, if I was one of those other 2 women, I would be absolutely terrified. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? There's no taxis, there's no buses, there's no trains. Luckily, there was a bus that was running late and we all got on it. But we automatically took these 2 women that were on their own and kept them with us, because I was like, I can't leave them. I know how I would feel. So actually, so far in the last hour, loads of people have mentioned transport. So Hayley, obviously it's your business, and you work with kids as well, which will be our next subject. So yeah, let's discuss the transport issue with you, the expert.
Well, just to give you a bit of background, we are a family-based business, so we don't use apps or anything like that. So if anybody wants to book transport with us, they do it through Facebook Messenger. They'll contact the page, or they'll contact my mobile. So basically, just to give people a brief kind of overview of taxis, private hire, buses. So your sort of service buses in Glasgow are all sort of contracted through Strathclyde Passenger Transport, which are based in Glasgow. So if they have a route that's going to be cancelled, they would normally have to notify it on the company's website or on the websites. If in your situation, a bus was broken down, the normal situation would be that the driver would contact the depot, and then the depot would have to send out another bus to forward on the journey. So you would never put people out in the street. You would obviously keep the people on the bus if it was safe to do so. Obviously, if it's in an unsafe area, you would have to put them out of the bus. But that should have been, you were kept on the bus until another bus actually came to then take you on your onward journey. If that doesn't happen, I would say you take your route number, your bus number, and you report it to SPT in Glasgow, because that shouldn't be happening. With the whole sort of taxi private hire situation, we're obviously based in Lanarkshire, so we're not in city centre. But with every council, there's 2 different types of licences you can get, which is quite important that people know. So you've got your taxi hackney licence, which is where that you can get picked up off the street. So if you see a taxi or a hackney, you can flag that down if the light's on and get in that. Private hire vehicles are got to be pre-booked with the company. So if you see a vehicle and it's got a private hire sticker on it, and you might not know, and you've flagged it down and they put you in that vehicle, they are not supposed to do that. It's not legal to do that. And the reason for that is that private hire cars must be pre-booked, and the booking office must have a record of where that vehicle is going from and to, and like contact details. With the taxi side of it, obviously you can flag them down in the street and then jump into it. The main thing that a lot of people aren't aware of, that we obviously do school contracts as well. Now, to do school contracts, our drivers got to have a PVG, which is the People's Vulnerable Group, which checks the staff to the highest level that you can get. Now, we've had situations that people have maybe applied for a job and they may have a taxi or a private hire licence, but when we put them through their PVG, they would fail to be able to get on as a school driver. And the reason is that maybe a charge of any nature. But what happens is when we get the PVGs done, we get notified of any charges or convictions or anything like that, and that goes to the council, and they then decide if that person's suitable to carry school children in their vehicle, bearing in mind that some of these kids are vulnerable. They're social work kids in care, being abused, being neglected, kids that are vulnerable that are not able to speak, they're non-verbal, they're blind, they're in wheelchairs. So a lot of people don't actually realise that a normal taxi driver doesn't have that level of clearance. So basically when they apply for a taxi or private hire licence, they basically get a police check done, but it's not as thorough as a PVG. So it's quite unusual, because what I say to a lot of people is try and find a firm that's local to you, that you know, that maybe do like schools, that you know their drivers are PVG cleared. Like all our drivers are cleared for PVGs. A lot of the apps are quite dangerous in a sense for taxi bookings, I feel, because people are taking bookings but they don't have the drivers to do it. So you're booking an app and you're booking a taxi that you think is going to arrive to pick you outside Crindine at 2 a.m, and you've got it booked and confirmed on your app, but it doesn't show up. When you try to contact them, they just tell you they're too busy. Doesn't matter if you've got a booking. And I experienced that myself a couple of weeks ago when I was in Glasgow, how bad it was. It happened to us. We booked with a big Glasgow company. We had booked it in the morning. It was confirmed and it just never happened. And I got to speak to a lot of different people at that point, and we realised how bad it was, like in Glasgow just now. What I would say to people is, like, if you are going out, if you flag down a taxi on the side of the road, take a picture of the plate on the back door. So a private hire car would have a plate sticker on the side door and on the back door. Taxis would also have that as well. So take a picture of the licence number so that you've got that. Send it to someone to let them know that you're in this taxi and what route you're going. Uber is a very kind of, a lot of people do use Uber, but there's been a lot of bad press around Uber. A lot of situations that have a lot of problems with Uber drivers. And the police in South Lanarkshire, when Uber applied to South Lanarkshire, they actually said they didn't want Uber in Lanarkshire because of the amount of problems that they've had with them. So it is also, there's a lot of foreign workers in Uber. And what people are trying to do with the private hire licenses and the taxi licenses. With taxi licenses, you used to have to sit a route test. With private hire, you didn't. So what a lot of people were doing that were applying for it and didn't know the area, they were going down the private hire route, basically, so they could just get a license and go out and work and use a sat-nav. So you'd maybe jump into a vehicle and tell them where you were going. They'd no idea whatsoever of the area, and they would punch in a postcode to the sat-nav. And I've experienced it in the past in Lanarkshire, where I jumped into a taxi and the guy had the address, and basically he was going the wrong road. And I said to him, where are you going? You know, you're not going the right road. And he said, oh, I'm just going where the sat-nav's taking me. And I said, but that's not the right roads. You know, I was starting to think, where is he actually taking me? So I would always recommend, if you are using taxis a lot, try and find a local firm, even like a one-man band that's an owner driver. Open up an account with them so that you're an account customer, because a lot of the companies give preference to account customers as well. So that's a really good thing to do. But I was quite interested, Ashley, when you said that you always use a Hackney over anything else because you felt safer. What makes you think you feel safer in a Hackney rather than any other taxi?
I think it's the barrier between the driver and myself.
Right.
If he's coming into the back of that taxi, I'm ready and no let him in. Do you know that? But if he's got to make an effort to get into the back of that taxi, whereas in a private hire, you don't have that. I don't know. It's just my personal thing. I think it's definitely the scene. It's an extra layer of security, I think. The doors are open. He comes in one side, you can go out the other. There's just, it's a bigger space as well. For me, it's always a hack, always. And if we're putting taxis on account, it's a Hackney account we've got as well. So if any of our clients are coming into the office and need transport home, any of my staff, they all go home in Hackneys.
Yeah, so I think it is getting worse, like obviously with the app system. I just think the app booking system for taxis just now is horrendous. And I think if a lot of companies went back to the original booking office, it would be a lot easier for people to know that the vehicle they've actually booked is going to turn up. Like if someone phones us for a booking, I will never give them, we do a lot of like 8-seaters, 16-seaters, but we'll do like people on their own, things like that as well. But I will always make sure that I've got a driver to do that route before I give them a price and take that booking. And we generally tell them, like, this is the driver's name, this is their number. Like a couple of weeks ago, we had like 8 girls wanting picked up from the Hydro. So I said to them, you know, we'll get the closest to the Hydro that we can get. We'll send you the driver's number and the registration of the bus. So when you come out, just give him a phone and he'll tell you where they are and you can get to a meeting point. We have situations as well where if it's maybe a group of females going out, they'll maybe ask us to do it in a specific order because there's maybe one female who is in her own and doesn't want to be last dropped off. So never be afraid, like if you're booking transport or in a taxi and you want to go a specific route, to drop somebody off first so that they're not left. We try not to, a lot of our drivers are males, so we'll try not to leave males drivers in a situation with a lone female going into a long area or into the country. And that's just to help protect our staff as well. I'm often asked, like, if I feel threatened, like if we have a driver that's off sick or something, I'll go out and do a hire late at night. And it doesn't bother me if it's like males or females. I think you have to be quite assertive when you're in a bus and you've got 8 guys in the back. You know, you make them known that you're quite confident and you're not scared of them being there. So yeah, it's just really making people aware, like where you're going, making sure that the vehicle that you're getting into is properly licensed. You know, if you're flagging down somebody off the street, you need to make sure that it's got a license plate on the back door, you've got a license number. Ask the driver to take a picture of the license. You know, a lot of genuine drivers wouldn't bother if you asked to take a picture of their license. you know, they're quite comfortable at doing that. And I know obviously this is all about women's safety, but I do a lot of licensing forum groups with private hire groups and things like that. And some of the drivers feel vulnerable as well. You know, there's been situations where people have maybe not had money, and they've said to drivers, oh, I'm going to say this if you don't let me out the vehicle because I've not paid. So there's a lot of things that licensing are trying to do as well, like CCTV in taxis and private hire. But it's not just as easy as putting it in. It's got to have a permission from a licensing board. They're not allowed to record voices. It's only movement. So the licensing boards are trying to do a lot of stuff as well to protect people that are in the transport. But what I would say is, if you ever have an issue or you feel uncomfortable with a driver, you make a note of the plate number, you make a note of their license number, and you contact the company or the licensing authority and ask to speak to a licensing standards officer and just raise any concerns, because that's the only way that, like, if I had an issue with a driver, if a person had an issue with one of my drivers, I would want to know. If they felt uncomfortable or if there was a remark made that they weren't comfortable with, I would want to know so that I could deal with that. And I deal a lot with licensing standards officers, and they are very much like wanting to know if there's any issues, and they can bring that up with companies. So yeah, I think it's just trying to reassure everybody that and let people know the correct procedures in booking vehicles, and try and book in advance and know what vehicle you're getting, what driver you're getting, and try not to rely on the apps as much to book, and try and use more independent local companies rather than the big companies, because they're the ones that are too commercialised and they're just money orientated, and they're wanting to take people's booking, take their money, but then they're not turning up. And then that's when it leaves people in a vulnerable position.
Thanks, Hayley. I want to just come to Eleanor quickly, because I know she needs to dash off, but I'd like to, Eleanor, can you tell us more about your initiative and manifesto that you're working on just now?
Yes, so the Young Women Lead programme is a leadership programme for young women, which is being run in different local authority areas across Scotland over the next 3 years. And our Glasgow group graduated in September with a survey looking specifically at women and non-binary people's experiences in Glasgow's parks and buses. And so just to quickly chat about, obviously, we were looking at how the systems work for women. And one of the main things that came out of that, obviously, was how women don't feel safe on public transport or in buses. So just to give you, I'll put a link on the live stream as well, but just to give you a brief overview, because as Heather said, I do need to go. 67% of the respondents felt unsafe and uncomfortable on buses around Glasgow. 95% of respondents said that they did not feel safe in parks after dark. And one of the responses from that, with the recommendations that we did, was that 81% wanted better lights in Glasgow's parks. And I know that you're having a discussion about that next week with the Clyde Light the Way campaign, which is fantastic and we fully support. But one of the other things that we'd spoken about for recommendations for the buses was doing something very specifically about training for drivers on buses around supporting people, and because it's for the drivers as well. If a sexual assault's happening on your bus and you don't know how to deal with it, that is, you know, you need to have better things in place there. But also increasing accessibility on the buses, so having onboard bus tracking, showing upcoming stops, announcing them, having an app. I know you don't have it in Glasgow, but there is one in Edinburgh where you can actually see where the buses are. If you know what bus your pal is on, you can track it and things like that. So as I said, I do need to dash, but I'm going to post that in the chat. But just to say, we have submitted that report to Glasgow City Council, and we are anticipating an official response to that and the recommendations that we've made. And while it was about Glasgow City Council, you know, the experiences of women in Glasgow are not all that different from the experiences of women all over Scotland, the UK and the world when it comes to safety on buses and in parks. So it's something that should be written and, that should be read by anyone who has a transport company, anyone who looks after parks in any city or any, you know, area of the world. So yeah, thank you much for listening to me today. And just to say, I do have to dash off, but I'll put a link to that report and my email address on the live stream chat if anyone wants to discuss any of it further.
Thank you so much, Eleanor. That sounds amazing. And we'll make sure we spread that far and wide as well for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to move on. We've got just about 20 minutes left. So what I'd quite like to do is move on to discussing men. Okay, so we've all seen the That Guy campaign. Now, the That Guy campaign I thought was great. It's focused at men. Maybe I've missed something, but it's the first main one that I've seen that has been about guys and getting guys involved, and I thought it was fantastic. However, I talked to lots of guys and they hadn't heard of it. I talked to lots of women, they'd heard about it. So while it is a good campaign, perhaps it's not been pushed out or continuously enough, but it's a start. Okay, so it is a start, and let's be honest, we're here to discuss, right? We need to change. Guys need to get involved in the conversation. We've had a lot of chat and been commented about schools and starting young, so we'll go on to that as well, because that's definitely, particularly after the programme I watched last night on rape culture in schools, was horrendous. 10, 11-year-old boys watching porn, and that's their expectation, and the violence that is in that as well. And there was a lot of talk around Pornhub as well, and the fact that their response to kids being able to watch porn freely was that, well, actually, if parents put on the right child protection on the laptops or phones, and they won't get to see it, which is just not acceptable. And you heard young guys talking that actually that's the only experience they have, that's the only thing they have to know what their expectations should be when it came to females. And it's quite interesting seeing the males and females within schools coming together to have open discussion. I think as well, everyone around this table has grown up knowing we have to watch our drinks for spiking. Do you know it? It's one of those things that have become, it's ingrained, it's been normalised that you just don't leave your drink. I've had my drink spiked and it was a horrendous experience. It's in Glasgow. I was with friends and there was 3 of us. 2 of us were drinking wine, 1 was drinking a pint. The 2 wines get spiked. My mate drinking the pints just like, what's wrong with you guys? Mm-hmm. And that was about 15 years ago again. And the same bars that's happening in, then it's still happening in now. So things aren't changing. They aren't changing. They aren't changing quick enough. Even more terrifying is this new UK, the people getting injected. I don't want to call it a pandemic. It's just not right. It's horrendous. I want to speak to, first of all, Georgia and Lauren in this, because, so to give a background, Georgia and Lauren do some work with us, and I wanted them on board because they're out a lot. I see your Instagram, you're out, you've got a great social life, I'm very jealous. But actually, the idea of going out, and how on earth do you protect yourself from somebody trying to inject you, and what is the background to this? So I've been trying to have a conversation with different men this week in the lead up to this. And yeah, at first I was like, is it privilege? Is it people from poorer backgrounds? Is it you've been brought up that way? Will it grow out in time as, men's opinions through generations change? But for me, whatever, there's arguments within all of those topics, but there's nothing in my head can explain the pure badness of taking an injection and spiking somebody and sticking it into them in a club. And I personally wouldn't feel safe going to a club now because of it. So Georgia and Lauren, you are students, you're out all the time. What do you do? How do you feel about this?
Sorry, we've got a dog joining us now.
Oh, excellent.
Well, Lauren and I go out quite often together. We're kind of part of the same kind of girl group, as I say. I don't really drink purely because I am scared of getting to a point where I would be, taken advantage of, even though that should not be my responsibility. I just personally don't feel comfortable and safe in that position. especially with this kind of rise and people using like injections, it's just unfathomable. The thought that even like you have to consider what kind of top you're wearing, if it's low cut at the back, if it's the material's thick enough, if that were to happen, what you would do. There's just kind of no. It's so new. If like there's no education surrounding it, what to do if you are injected. But no, it is scary, and I think like when we first saw it happening, I don't know about Lauren, but it was scary seeing it happening and knowing people that you follow on like Instagram and Twitter that had been, you know, injected on nights out, and it's just there's not really anything being done.
I think, as you said, Heather, like we've grown up knowing about drinks being spiked, so that's something I've always been cautious of, and like always like don't leave my drink, and like that's engraved. But the injections is just scary because it's like it's crazy. I can't believe that people are actually doing that, and I feel so like defenseless. Like there's nothing we can do. Like if you're out, you wouldn't even know what's happening. Like I don't know, it's just horrible. And I know a lot of my friends haven't actually been out since like the headlines started, like out in clubs or whatever. We've like changed what we're doing slightly because a lot of people aren't comfortable going out anymore, which is horrible.
Yeah. So
it does feel, it does feel a bit like, especially after the pandemic, it feels like there's been a bit of a shift in behaviour. Like my mum says this, I don't know how PC this is, but she says like after the pandemic, it feels like all the weirdos are out because there's been so many circumstances where women have been attacked or been assaulted. And it just feels like there is something coming out of the woodwork, and there's no explanation for it other than, you know, there was this absence of, you know, vulnerable women, and now we're all trying to get back to normality. You know, there's that kind of audience that they have, that they're pick and choose from, and so that's how I see the injections. It's not just a power thing, it's an actual evil thing that people are doing. There's no justification behind it. I can't comprehend it, actually.
Alex, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts on this. I had a really nasty feeling. It's funny you say that, Georgia, because I had a really nasty feeling because I had this really weird experience of the first day that was happened. So I was hanging out with some of my girlfriends who I work with, and we're all sitting actually in the student union in Edinburgh, and we're all sitting around working. It was about a month ago now. And one of my close friends, she walked in and she was just white. And she came and sat down, and we were like, "Oh, hi, Sophie, you all right?" And she was like, "I was out last night, and one of my friends got injected with a needle." And we all like sat there, and we just didn't obviously know what to say. We were like, "Oh my God, is she all right?" And we took her to the hospital. She got PEP. And then we just watched we watched Edinburgh Anonymous, which was the first one to break it. We watched all of this just roll in, and we were sat there for about 2 hours as just like social media went nuts. And all these cases started coming out. And I think something that I have a really nasty feeling about, I saw a clip from Loose Women that came on a few days later when they were discussing it. And I don't know who it was, but one of them went, "Oh, well, there's only been 20, this was a few days after, there's only been 27 confirmed cases. So I don't know why there's so much hysteria." And 27 confirmed cases, I think that's 27 too many. I don't know if anyone agrees.
Yeah.
And it was just, the response was like so, you know, saying, well, you know, was this true? And accusing women of making it up, which I thought was horrendous. And then, you know, the wider conversations coming about spiking. But it was so scary because I was on the phone, and then I was on the phone to Rachel, and we were talking about this, and I said, what's next? And my flatmate Annie, who I was sitting next to, just goes, "What do you mean, what's next? Like, how much worse could it get?" And I said, well, if I told you 2 weeks ago that people would be going around injecting people with needles, would you have believed me? And I was like, no, because you can't ever be, you know, misogyny adapts, it survives, it mutates. And when we find a solutions, you know, covering our drinks, we're never leaving our drinks alone, staying with our friendship groups, there's, you know, it will just adapt. And I had a really nasty feeling, so I sort of keep losing my point, is that I was worried that on like maybe like Reddit or 4chan, which are these, you know, online forums where misogyny and like, you know, men are encouraged to commit these acts of violence. I had a feeling that something had come out and gone out on one of these platforms saying, you could inject women with needles, you could inject them with a spiking agent for the power to sexually assault them, to rob them, because a wave across the country all happening within a few days.
That is right.
It's come from somewhere, hasn't it? It's got to
come
come
from somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
That's terrifying.
It's almost like a concerted effort, because if you had got it came from nowhere, and then all of a sudden over the course of 3 days, from the Friday to the Monday, you're starting to hear there was one in Edinburgh, there was one up north, then there was
Manchester, Glasgow, London, Liverpool.
I have to be honest, ladies, right? I think this is exactly where Police Scotland could have, you know, it's all very well making lovely little videos and sending them out and not PRing them, which they haven't, because I've never received a single thing about that video. I've got 50,000 readers. So Police Scotland, instead of the wishy-washy response, which was issued, should have come down like a ton of bricks on this, right? This is utterly unacceptable behaviour from anyone. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you're jabbing. This, I mean, what is the, so, you know, Alice, you've said, what are they doing it for? Are they looking to rob them, to sexually assault them? Well, they're looking to kidnap them, as far as I'm concerned, right? Because they're going to spike this girl or this woman, and what are they going to do with her? Now, that to me should have, someone high up in the Scottish government should have come out and said, honestly, I couldn't care if it was 2 instances or 2,000 instances. To do that to another human being should not be, that's not something we should be, oh, well, you know, we've heard, you know, there's rumours of, it's like, no, these girls aren't lying. That, you know, the doctors can see what's going on with them. I mean, I'm like you, I've been spiked as well, right? It was one of the most horrific experiences, because everyone was like, oh my God, you're so drunk. And it's like, this is a different, I couldn't speak. Couldn't give my address to the taxi driver. I mean, I've been drunk a lot of times. I know how I am when I'm drunk, and that was not it. And it's very interesting that the person who I think was responsible for it was then outed as someone who was quite sort of, you know, prolific in that front. But this should have been stamped out right from the start. This, you know, zero tolerance on this. We cannot be allowing people to do this to young women who are out and about trying to have a good time after the last 2 years that they've had. Absolutely not. Where's the big statements? Where are the big statements saying no?
Police Scotland's response to all of this is just so, and it's to many things. It's denying, they denied that spiking existed. They deny that the numbers are what they are. And the campaign, it really frustrates me because I know that they've paid whoever thousands to come up with that, because it's a really effective campaign. But a friend of a friend, who I won't name because for her privacy, but she has been being stalked for 3 years by someone who she works with. And she's been stalked for 3 years. And she's been, eventually, she's very, very private. And she's really embarrassed by this, because she does blame herself. She says, oh, well, I worked with him. Did I encourage him? Whatever. No, he's just a creep and a weirdo. And so what she ended up doing was, she was so nervous about going to any authorities with this, that she put together like, what they call them, like folders, like big like Lever Arch files worth of screenshots, photos of him telling her about her flat, messages, all the things he'd been doing, the stalking he'd been doing, things he'd been sending her, all this kind of stuff. And she went to the police and she gave them all this, and she went, this is my proof, this is my evidence, this is what's been going on. And they laughed at her. And they left her house. And as they were leaving, and this will stick with me literally till the day I die, as they were leaving, and I'm so proud of her because when she told me, she said it was so out of character for her. Because like I said, she's very shy, she's very private. And as they were leaving, she stood up in her living room and she just went, one day I'm going to turn up dead and you're going to have to live with the fact that you knew and you didn't do anything.
That's so sad.
That's horrendous.
You hear it so often, but that whilst there is police out there that are trying to do good and trying to change, there is a systematic failure within Police Scotland, within Metropolitan Police as well. That does need to change. You know, I hear it day after day after day. A woman coming and telling us that they've been strip searched and put into a polythene suit, and this is survivors of really, really serious historical abuse. That whole situation has just amplified her trauma tenfold. This is something that needs properly addressed. And it's great when they pay lip service and they say, we're listening. Well, let's see you actually put that into action. You're right. The spiking incidents should have been nipped in the bud instantly. It's not just the incident of being spiked. What about the implications in needing HIV tests and all the other things that come with that, and being spiked with a dirty needle? Police Scotland should have came down on this with a ton of bricks, and that is what needs to change. It's like we need to see action. We need to know that you've heard what we're saying. You've not just listened to it, but you've actually heard it. Alice, I hear these stories every single day, and when we talk about trust in the police, we've got very, very few people that we work with that would say they trust the police. Certainly my experience with the police was shocking, absolutely disgraceful. I made a formal complaint, and I did a whole host of things because it was shocking behaviour, and that was 10 years ago. So the fact that nothing has changed from my experience 10 years ago to your friend's experience just a couple of days ago, it's shocking. It's truly shocking.
I think as well that we know, we look at especially a lot of the figures that are coming out about how many police officers are participating in this behaviour themselves. So since 2018, 800 police officers across the UK have been found guilty by a panel of sexual misconduct and have not been dismissed. So we know that these men are participating in this. I mean, I actually have some of the figures here, which are, 211 serving police officers have been convicted of criminal offences, 800 allegations, found guilty of 800 allegations of sexual misconduct between 2018 and 2021. Since 2017, 5 serving police officers have murdered women, including Sarah Everard. Recently, the Metropolitan Police allowed a senior officer to continue working for 3 years after 2 female colleagues accused him of rape. Less than a third of police officers have any specific procedures to support those survivors of sexual assault and domestic abuse. 2,507 police officers do not have an up-to-date level of vetting since 2006.
It's almost like everything just got too big, didn't it? I think that's one of the things, like, we're now looking and saying, oh, we should never have used that much plastic, and we should never have, used that much fuel and all this kind of thing, right? And it's almost like we need to look back at things that, when police stations were part of communities and you did know your police officers and they came to the schools and they, I'm not saying that by any means that's what's going to have to happen, but I do think when these things get so big, people fall through the gaps. Opportunists get themselves into places where they know that they're going to have access to potential victims, and they exploit it. And, that's human nature for those kind of people, and they'll do it no matter, it's like, when you said how misogyny mutates, what a perfect way to phrase it, because it will, and it will continue to do so until we find out what on earth it is that these men hate about women so much that this is how they want to live their lives, and this is what they want to do to females. And I think we need to work that out. And once we've solved that, there needs to be some sort of, board who sit down with, the finest minds in the land, in the world, and figure out what it is that causes that, and how we can then, pull ourselves away from these behaviours. Because, these poor girls, you guys going out to clubs, right? You have no way of defending yourself against these people. No way whatsoever. It's not about covering your drink. It's not about keeping sober. It's none of those things, right? Okay, all those, you shouldn't have to do any of those things, but you do, because you have to look after your own personal safety. But you have no way of defending yourself on that side of things whatsoever. And that's
because the legislation's not on our side.
No, and the thing is, they can hurry laws through quickly enough if they need to, if it suits. So how that has been allowed to carry on for these weeks is literally beyond me. And I cannot think how another human being could possibly downplay that. It's barbaric, isn't it? It's like when you said it was evil, Georgia. It's evil.
Well, I know if it was against male politicians, it would be considered a terror attack. But because it's against female students, it's completely dismissed.
Yeah.
And we are vulnerable, and especially because legislation doesn't allow us to carry pepper spray or, like any sort of self-defense weapons. Whereas now the police are given more tasers, and people are, allowed to sneak in needles into clubs. I just can't I just don't understand it.
No.
It all just reaffirms this view that society has that women are second-class citizens. Our lives are expendable. Our lives are not worth as much. All of it goes to show that we don't carry as much value as men because what? Because
there's no reason for it.
There is no reason. No, it's attitudes. It is 100% people's attitudes, and that's what needs to change. We are not second-class citizens. I will not raise my daughter to feel inferior to a man. No, it's a scary, scary world we live in.
Ladies, I feel like we could just sit here for another 2-3 hours and try and...
Can we sit here for a bit? Please, Heather. Please let us get back on though.
No, I'm going to ask. So obviously, I think there's further discussions with all of you. And do you know, it's not just this month's focus that we're doing, but ongoing. And I think it's like when afterwards we can discuss it, what else we can do. Maybe we can have further in-depth discussion, because we've just grazed over the top of so many issues. But what I'm going to do is go around the table one more time just to finish off, and just your closing words, be it to women, to men, your final thoughts. But also, is there something that you can do that, so for me, a commitment for me that I'll make in my company is that I think too many campaigns, too many strategies finish after we've done that. Okay, they've ticked that box, but it's not going away. It's never gone away, and it's only getting worse. But now I think generations of women, the younger they are and the stronger we are, the more we'll actually stand up and try and fix this. We're not going to sit and just listen now. So for me, my commitment will be that the conversation won't stop. Do you know what? This is not just going to be a campaign that, we've done this panel of it and that was great. We will keep doing this, and I'll work with the likes of Ashley and Laura and Tracy or anyone else who wants to, and make this something that every month we will make sure that it's covered, because until we see changes. And you know what as well, just sharing information. So I did a lot of research to think, who are we going to bring on this panel? And once you start doing that, what's this Instagram and socials like, the more things you look at, the more they show you within those fields. And there's just so many more initiatives and people campaigning, people fighting to change things, that it's brilliant. So we'll keep sharing all this stuff as well, and create more panels and create more conversations. And Laura, Ashley and I were talking, we're going to get a guys panel together. So take some of the clips of what we've been talking about today and have a male host it and show some of the clips of what we're saying and let them respond to it as guys, not to criticize them, but to let them learn. Because I think a lot of the issues a lot of them don't know, and how that is going to make any difference to the people that are just pure evil, I don't know, but we have to do what we can with the abilities each of us have. So that's my commitment. So Laura, I'm just going to come around the table. So Laura, you've got a massive following on social. You've got the business club and you've got the personal club, as well as just tens of thousands of followers. What's your closing remarks?
Well, I'm right there with you, Heather. I think it's so important to keep this conversation going. I know that yourself and Ashley and I have spoken about that. Like, don't just let it be a passing trend when something horrible happens in society and then all of a sudden, you know, there's a fight for change, and then sometimes it can dissolve a wee bit. Let's not let's not stop the conversations, because that's potentially what the patriarchy would like us to do. This is our time to say, during the past 10 years, the 1 in 3 stat hasn't really changed. One woman every 3 days hasn't changed. So men are still doing exactly what they're doing. But like Emma said, we're getting stronger and we're ready to speak out. And any, ladies, men watching this, have conversations amongst your own group. Have conversations with men. Try and get to the bottom of where this entrenched entitlement comes from, that we are lesser to them, or that they own, or that they can control. And it's through these conversations and chatting to children and parents of children, speak to girls and boys and try and make a change. But these conversations with our generation and the younger generations that we've got on the panel are so important, because it will spark inspiration and ideas in other women. So yes, that is my pledge, to continue with these conversations.
Thank you, Laura. Tracy, obviously you represent a lot of business women and Scottish women in business across the country.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know that everybody in our membership is either, there's lots of people that are already involved in conversations like this or initiatives like this. And I think with our new partnership with Ashley at Thriving Survivors, this is just the beginning, and we will do as much as we can to raise awareness and not just get involved for a month because something's happening, but whatever initiatives are coming up throughout the year, we will definitely do whatever we can to support it. So I think we need to get our heads together and see what the next year looks like and do as much as we can for it. I mean, just listening to everything today, I think actually the whole apps thing, I didn't really know about apps. I've never considered that. I think it's great what Alice has done, but I'm really sad that we actually have to have these things anyway. I think sadly it doesn't take much to shock us these days, but the whole injection thing, I can remember the first time I read about that, and that was like, it blew my mind. Like, who comes up with something like this? It was just so shocking. So yeah, we absolutely up there, keep the conversation going, keep people aware of things and get involved in as much as we can.
Thanks, Tracy. Lauren?
Yeah, I agree. Just keep the conversation going. I know like experience like weird men and stuff all the time. So I think it's just important to make like everyone else aware, like the guys in our family and stuff, that this actually happens, and to stay angry and to not normalize it. Yeah.
Thanks, Lauren. Georgia?
Build upon what Lauren says. I think, yeah, anger is such an important tool. And it's really important to have these kind of uncomfortable conversations. A lot of people had uncomfortable conversations last year about race, and we need to keep that ongoing, as well as have these uncomfortable conversations about gender and violence against women, because if you're uncomfortable about it, then that just goes to show how that you're part of the problem. Because we need to stay angry, and having these uncomfortable conversations is a way of breaking the kind of taboo nature of it, and normalizing that it's okay for women and men to discuss these issues. And just because we're discussing it with men doesn't mean they're guilty. It just means that by educating them, it's like we have another ally.
100%, definitely. Hayley?
Yeah, just obviously, I know we never really touched on the children's side of things as well, but I think it's quite important. I stand at some schools some days, some additional needs schools, some mainstream schools, and it's quite alarming, some of the conversations that we hear in some of our transport between kids, chat they have, like the language they use. We've had to speak to quite a few parents about the language that was getting used in the vehicles and what they were discussing. So I think it's really important, like for parents as well, to discuss it with children, and young adults. We've had some pretty disgusting language said to some of our female staff It's got to the stage that we've had to say that the children wouldn't be transported if it continues. So I think a lot of it stems from a young age as well, from some of the people that, you know, maybe went on to do different crimes. So that's really important as well. And we work a lot with a lot of charities and young carers groups and vulnerable groups. You know, so we, on our social media, we always share a lot of stuff from various groups and support groups and things like that. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody's got in relation to transport, whether it's public transport, private transport, you know, and there is a lot of different organisations that control the transport and the licensing. So if anybody had like an issue on transport, they wanted to run it past me, I can give them the best guidance to see, you know, how to try and improve that or make them feel safer, and happy to help in any way that we can, just to going forward to help anybody in that side of it, or even just recommend someone to them in their area that can help, and just try and spread the word really about, you know, it's quite an unusual subject, the transport side of it, because a lot of people don't really know the ins and outs of it. So it is good to try and explain a bit more in depth about that, and just really spread the word and make it a safer place for everyone, really.
Thanks, Hayley. I think it definitely is another whole other discussion, another panel around kids, and have the discussion early, and yeah, that's a whole other one we need to go through. Emma?
Yeah, I mean, I think that schools, it is really important. I do, and I'm not going to go into it now, but I do think that, you know, women who have sons need to really, you know, they really need to sort of use the knowledge they have of being a woman and try and bring boys up to know all of that information. I mean, I hear some things, you know, that make my hair curl, you know, and I think it's so important right at the beginning that they understand that, you know, women aren't objects for them to have. And, you know, also I notice that women do parent their sons slightly differently to the way they parent their daughters. I think that's something I've seen a lot of over the years. And, you know, the whole mother-in-law scenario becomes a thing, doesn't it? Because boys are raised by women to think that they're their little princes, when, you know, work needs to be done there, I think. And I think that's maybe the sort of the bigger picture style of things, is how we actually, you know, you were talking about Pornhub and stuff. A 10-year-old on a phone looking at things like that, absolutely not. No way. But legislation and things, maybe we all need to say we're not accepting of the things that are online and stuff, and pull together. Lots of little fractured groups need to pull together almost, I think, in that terms. Happy to use Hood if it helps. It's got, you know, 50,000 readers, you know, just give me a shout if there's anything I can do. I think as well, you know, Ashley, what you're doing is phenomenal. I think you're an incredible woman, and, you know, a real asset to the country with your charity, and, you know, hats off to you for it, because it's not easy. You've obviously been through it yourself, but, you know, you've come out the other end, and you're helping other women, and I would say, you know, thank you to you for that. I think it's fantastic.
Thanks, Emma.
Alice?
Yeah, I guess my closing remark is that definitely agree with what we've all been saying. Stay angry, as you can imagine. Really getting to know me over the past hour and 46 minutes. Filled with rage. But yeah, I think stay unapologetic, stay angry. StretSafe is here for you if you need. That's our mission, is to be there for anyone who needs us and to support people. And that's, yeah, and to those who suffer violence, and to the women who suffer violence, it is never your fault. We are here for you. All of us are. There is a whole community of people out there, people like the work that Ashley is doing. And to the people who perpetrate this violence, your time is limited.
Yeah.
We're all coming for you, and you won't get away with this much longer. Things will change because we will make them change. You won't be able to get away with this forever, because not only, we've always had enough. But now we have the tools, the resources, the empowerment and the community and the solidarity to take collective action to end it. And we will win and you will lose.
Yes.
Thanks, Alice.
Yes.
Ashley, I don't know how you go after that.
I don't think I've anything I'm left speechless. Alice, you blow me away. At 22 years old, I cannot wait to see what you achieve in 10, 20 years' time when you're like in charge of the country.
You'll be right there with me, Ashley, I promise. Right there with me, and I'm bringing you with me even if you don't want to come.
Right beside you. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that there's something happened here. This isn't just one organisation running a campaign. This is a collective. This is a multi-pronged approach to actually trying to tackle this, and that's what needs to continue. My commitment is to raise my boys to recognise that women are equals, to have respect, to have integrity, and to just be good men. And for my daughter, my commitment to her is to raise her with as much honesty and as much information as she needs to be a strong, independent woman who can go out there and face this crazy world that we live in. So that's my commitment to the future generation. To the ladies that have sat here with us today and joined in this conversation, my commitment to you is that we will keep this going. We will continue the conversation. What that looks like, I don't quite know yet, but there's a lot of collective minds here, brilliant minds that can come together and really start to do something with this. This is just the start of something really, really special, I think.
Ashley, you've already proven yourself that you are capable of making change and having your voice heard, so we're all behind you on that. Ladies, thank you so much for staying on much longer than expected. It's been an absolutely amazing discussion. I think that we could probably stay here for the rest of the day and then keep on having this discussion. For everyone that's watching, thank you if you have stayed with us throughout. For anyone that's going to catch up, I appreciate it. It's a long video to watch and catch up on it. Take it in bits and pieces. We'd love to hear your feedback. Yeah, if you get any stories, if you get any feedback, if you want to get involved, if you want to, any suggestions, we're all here. Every one of us will all be tagged in the socials. So if you want to contact anyone specific, go for it. I'll make sure my email's there too. If you want introduced to anybody, we're all here to keep this going. I think that's quite clear. Next Friday, the 3rd of December at 11 AM, we'll be doing another panel, and that's going to be with Clyde One Radio, and that's discussing their Light the Way campaign. So just today, it's been released that on Friday the 10th at 6 PM, there's going to be a demonstration in Glasgow, Kelvin Grove Park, and we're asking everyone to come along. There'll be speakers, bring a light, be it, go wild. I've got a hat with little light up butterflies, but it's really cool. I'm not going to lie, I spent a lot of time on Amazon finding the best light. But yeah, they're going to do a new demonstration that has some keynote speakers, and it's about lighting up parks. It was done for COP26. It is doable. It's time to get it done, and we're totally behind that campaign. So there will be press releases going out today. You'll hear it on the radio. You'll see it on all our social. I'll send out to everyone around here the press release too if you want to share it. But that'll be next Friday, another conversation. And yeah, we'll have a look at the comments, and if there's anything we need to come back to, we'll do that. But just a massive thank you to everyone watching and everybody on the panel.
Thanks, ladies. Thank you for chairing and for hosting.
Yeah, well done, Heather.